Hi, everybody. So in this video, we're going to do some practice related to the elasticity lecture that hopefully you just finished. So the first one is, and these are all about price elasticity of demand, PED. A news channel finds that a 10% increase in its ad prices will decrease the quantity of ad buys by 8%. And so I've gone ahead and set up for you PED -8 because that's the quantity, right? And then +10. So what is that? Now, in this class, on the AP tests, you won't be able to use calculators, at least if you're sitting for the AP exam in the traditional setting. So ideally, most of the numbers are something you could do in your head, but sometimes a four-function calculator can be a little helpful just to check your math. The nice thing is, and I'll say this again, and I know that this is, you're trying to work, is that if you write out all of the stuff, if you were to write, -8 over +10, and then you were to write like instead of it being -0.8, which that's what that is, if you wrote -0.7, and you wrote this part correctly, then you would still get the points. And that's how I grade in this class. So if you write it out correctly, but you just are like, a brain fart on the math, that's okay. The end answer doesn't matter as much as, like, did you set the problem up correctly? And so that's an important observation. All right, so this is just 0.8. You can put a negative sign if you want, because we know that all of the PEDs are negative, but you can also leave it off, and you won't get any points taken off either way. Is demand for advertising elastic, inelastic, or unelastic? Now, this makes sure that you can kind of think back and interpret, what is this value actually telling us? Well, it means that it's relatively inelastic, that you have less than 1, right? So this is less than 1. Unelastic would be if it's 1, elastic is greater. Landlord noticed a 15% drop in apartments after raising rents 10%. So I've set the problem up again for you, and this is going to be -1.5, where again, you could just say 1.5. This would be demand elastic. Now, why? Well, probably because it's a relatively large part of people's income. So we wouldn't be surprised if rent is relatively elastic. Now, one more, the price of chicken sandwiches and the quantity demanded. And we have old values and new values. Using the table, calculate the price elasticity of demand for cafeteria chicken sandwiches. Now, I've gone ahead and put this here because most students come to me and they go, I learned percent change, I know how to do that. And then, like, push comes to shove and you're like, no, I don't know how to do percent changes. But the answer is in what you just said, right? If you were like, no, percent change, it's in there. New minus the old over the old. Because see, you're ready. You're going, no. That's percent change. New minus old over old. Now, that's your little trick, right? So we're going to put that in a box. Now, we have to do percent change. We have to do it twice because remember, percent change of quantity and percent change of price. So the percent change in quantity, you go from 200 to 160. So it's 160 minus 200 over 200. And then we're going to do the price ones on the bottom. Now, the trick to remembering those, the price ones always go on the bottom because the dollars, these are dollars, right, always go down in the denominator. And that's true for all of these. So the new value is 2 minus the old value is 1.5 over 1.5. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of mathing here. So this is -40 over 200 divided by, and then that's 0.5 over 1.5. Okay. Now, this is 1/5, right? 40 goes into 200 because you could also do 4 into 20. So 4 goes into 20 5 times. So there's 1/5. So we have -1/5 divided by 1/3. And now here's where we actually figure this out, right? If you're dividing by a fraction, we're going to convert. And you would have had space if you hadn't had to write that down. Sorry. -1/5 times 3. Because it's the reciprocal, so it's -3/5. Now, most of the time, if you leave it in the fraction form, that's okay. It's better to actually convert that into a decimal, and so the decimal version would be -0.6, right? And so we would actually say that that's the price elasticity of demand for cafeteria chicken sandwiches is -0.6. That means it's relatively inelastic. Okay. So that was a long explanation, but hopefully you picked up on some of the tips that I put in there, like put the dollars in the denominator and how to do percent change. Price elasticity of demand of ice cream is 1.2 at the current price of 50 cents. Current consumption is 100. If price goes up by 10%, how much will quantity demanded change? So this one is actually, you're given two of the three variables, right? You're given PED in this case, you're given the percent change in price, and it's asking you how much does quantity demanded change. So we know PED is equal to percent change in quantity demanded over percent change in price. And this is telling us 1.2 is equal to some percent change in quantity over positive 10%. So what would have to be in the numerator to give us 1.2? Well, it would have to be negative 12%, right, for that to be true. And if we're at 100 right now, the quantity demand, we could say it will go down by negative 12%, or you could just say decrease by 12, because we started at 100 ice cream cones. Draw a demand curve and label whether it's relatively elastic, inelastic, or unit. Low proportion of income, addictives, few substitutes, those are cigarettes. And so we should see quantity, we should see a relatively inelastic demand curve, okay, because there's very few substitutes and it's addictive. Movie theater tickets, middle of the road in terms of income. They're not really a necessity, they're not really a luxury, there are some substitutes to it. So that's kind of in the middle of the road. That's probably pretty close to unit elastic. What we found is that as time has gone on, movie tickets have become more elastic because there's lots more substitutes to them. But like back 1980s, 1970s, they were a lot more unit elastic. And they've gotten more expensive. So quantity, which makes it more elastic. Automobiles, high portion of income, not really a necessity. They're not really a luxury. There are some substitutes, but in general, there's fewer of them. It's probably closer on the elastic side if you draw that one. Right? So it's more like that. But I would accept anything, unit or elastic on that one. This is more just get you to think about it, right? There isn't like you must know the exact value. Caribbean cruises, high proportion of your income. It's a luxury product. There are a lot of substitutes for it. So that's hopefully keying us in that it's very elastic, right? And so you will often see lots of times elastic goods will go on sale. Inelastic goods do not. You will never see cigarettes go on sale. You don't usually see toilet paper go on sale, but Caribbean cruises, they go on sale all the time. All right, see you next time.